Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Halloween version of Tech Tuesdays. This week's webinar is Preparing to File Your 1099s, your checklist updates and best practices, produced by Out of the Box. We have a team dedicated to the preparation and filing of your 1099s, and we are here to ensure that every box is checked and each of your forms is filed correctly and on time. Today, we welcome Josh Hall as our presenter. Josh joined Out of the Box in 2019 as Director of Accounting and Data Services. With a Six Sigma Black Belt certification, Josh is a seasoned licensed public bookkeeper with the NACPB, Advanced Certified QuickBooks Pro Advisor, and he specializes in project and recurring accounting services, franchise account management, training, and client relations. Josh's wealth of expertise is often tapped by our team, so I encourage you to engage him with any questions you might have. As for me, my name is Jeanette Schwartz-Rattan, Director of Marketing here at Out of the Box, and I will be your moderator for the day. Just a few housekeeping items before we dive in. This session is being recorded to give you the opportunity to really engage and ask questions. The recording will be shared as a resource after the webinar, and you can revisit any key points and information you'd like to review, share it with colleagues, or keep it for future reference. We have saved some time at the end of the presentation for questions. However, if you're hoping to dig a little deeper into something that Josh covers or need some clarification, feel free to chat those questions to us and we can address those in real time. A little bit about Out of the Box, if you haven't joined us before, maybe it's been a while. Here at Out of the Box, our mission is to empower entrepreneurs with the QuickBooks-based financial tools, services, and insights they need to thrive. Out of the Box is the premier choice for QuickBooks accounting services, boasting over 30 years of experience and a track record of exceeding the expectations of more than 50,000 satisfied clients. Our comprehensive accounting solutions save you time and money while providing you with the financial accuracy, security, and insights necessary to grow your business. As an elite QuickBooks solution provider, we are able to offer you exclusive discounts and pricing. So please be sure to connect with us before purchasing your QuickBooks solutions. With that, I believe I've covered all of our housekeeping items. So I'm going to pass the baton to Josh so he can get started. Josh, take it away.
Thanks, Jeanette, and thank you all for joining. Just a quick apology in advance in case my voice goes out. I'm getting over a cough here, but I think we'll make it through it just fine. So it's just about November, and here we are discussing 1099s again. So we'll just jump right into the guts of this. Next slide, please. Okay, we got the poll question. Perfect. Give you guys a minute to. Oh, go ahead, Jeanette.
Go ahead. If you want to take a second just to go ahead and share how many 1099s you file each year, you can vote in the poll. Looks like we've got about 65% that have voted. We'll give it a couple more seconds.
Good amount of attendees today.
Yeah. Got 56 of you. All right, we're at 90%, so I'm going to close the poll and share.
All right. Yeah, this is good to know. The number is going to be really important this year. We'll get to that information at the end of the presentation and why that matters in 2023, 2024. Okay, next. Poll question number 2. Oh. Jeanette, are you seeing that there? Looks like it jumped back.
Yeah, I accidentally closed the poll. I'm going to see if I can reopen it. And it's not allowing me to relaunch it. So if you wanna chat your answers to us, would you consider 1099s a pain point for your organization? Yes or no? You can go ahead and chat those to us in the question box.
I feel like that's a gimme. It's got to be a pain point for everybody. They're just not the most fun thing to do, right?
Yep.
Perfect.
Looks like most people are answering yes. Yeah, we've got a good 15 to 20 yeses here for sure.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, then we can jump right back in. Okay, let's start with the 4Ws, the 1099s. So today we're going to help you guys go over what they are, what you need to be able to do your part in the process, who should receive one, and which transactions count. There is a lot of good information out there on the basic requirements for 1099s, but today we're going to try to dig a little deeper on the recent changes that are making 1099s a bit more difficult for business owners lately. Next slide. So what is a 1099? Many of you may receive 1099s each year from your bank or retirement accounts. For example, a 1099 INT or 1099 DIV. These 1099s are used to report interest and dividends. However, for the purposes of today's presentation, we'll be discussing strictly the 1099 NEC and MISC, as these are the forms that business owners are responsible for. So looking at the screen here, the 1099 NEC is for non-employee compensation. While a W-2 reports payments to employees, a 1099 NEC is going to report payments to non-employees. And for non-employees, we're going to refer to those as either vendors or independent contractors going forward. The 1099 MISC is for a number of miscellaneous payments. The IRS website has a list of those payments. It's long and has exceptions and a bunch of information. But to use an example that everybody's more familiar with, we're going to use rent. So for example, if you pay someone for rent, you may have to issue them a 1099 MISC. Next slide, please. Okay, so what do I need? W-9s. W-9s are an information sheet that's signed by the vendor or independent contractor, which provides legal information of that person or entity. If I have one piece of advice today, it's that you want to gather these early rather than waiting until January. You're going to need the information that's on these W-9s in order to process and submit 1099s. And you just don't want to have to do that all in January, especially trying to track down someone you paid the prior January or February. You may not even know where they live any longer. So if you can build a process into your business where if you anticipate paying someone $600 or more during the year, using the criteria that we're going to go over, just go ahead and get a signed W-9 from them at that time, and you'll save yourself the headache of trying to do that all in January. Good payment records. Generally speaking, keeping good payment records is going to be accomplished via your accounting system, unless you're a very small business and you're just keeping everything in an Excel spreadsheet or something. So what you want to have is a means of tracking all the payments you've made and the ability to pull not only the totals per vendor, but also the type of payment and what the payment is for, because all of that information is going to be needed to determine whether or not that payment is 1099 eligible. Okay, next slide. So who gets a 1099? Oh, so let's go through the general criteria based off the IRS website. It's for you made the payment to someone who is not your employee, going back to that employee thing. You made the payment for services in the course of your business or trade. So these would not include payments for goods like inventory. And you also wouldn't include transactions between individuals that are not part of your business operations. And then thirdly, you made eligible payments to the payee of at least $600 during the year. As far as eligibility, we'll dig into this a bit later on because it's become a bit of a moving target, especially in 2023. So who doesn't get 1099s? Corporations. That's also going to include, an LLC that is taxed as a corporation, like an S Corp. When you have that type of tax status, you have your own responsibility for reporting certain payments. As with everything and all regulations, there are exceptions. So one quick exception to the corporation exclusion would be an attorney. Whether they're a corporation or not, you still file a 1099 for them. It's just one of those things that keep us on our toes. And then again, who doesn't? Employees, that's accomplished with a W-2. And you also are not going to give a 1099 to vendors you paid for merchandise, freight, etc. And then we have, check with your accountants and or IRS guidance for additional criteria, because again, the list of exceptions and other criteria that you need to look at is long and extensive. Okay, next slide. Okay, which payments count? This may be the most important part of the presentation because it's something that's changed and it's a little finicky. So general criteria for payments that do count are payments made by cash, check, wire transfer, electronic check, ACH, Zelle, online bill pay, bank to bank only, not credit card, or direct deposit. Those are all included types of payments. The reason I have Zelle underlined is because it falls into some other categories that would generally be excluded, except Zelle has become a bit of a unicorn in that they've said that they don't actually handle the funds that they transfer. So they're sort of an intermediary and they never take ownership of the funds, and therefore they're not the same as a regular payment processor. So all that to say that Zelle payments are included in your 1099 totals. Excluded payments. So credit cards and debit cards or payment cards like Visa and MasterCard, they've been excluded for some time now. But the next part, which is certain other types of payments, including third-party network transactions, that's where things are getting a bit tricky. So let's go into that a little bit on the next slide. So, yep, one thing I forgot to mention on that last slide is why those types of payments are excluded. It's because credit card companies and now third-party payment processors, they're required to take care of the reporting on their own. And what they do is they issue something called a 1099-K. And so since they're the ones that are going to issue a type of 1099 for those payments, you don't want to double report them on your 1099 NEC or MISC. So let's talk about the changes that have happened to these. So the 2021 American Rescue Plan, it reduced the 1099-K reporting threshold for third-party settlement organizations to $600 a year from a whopping $20,000. So that's a very big change. So previously they didn't have to submit a 1099-K unless it was $20,000 or more. Now it's just $600, which is similar, or not similar, but the same as the MISC and NEC totals. So this means that these organizations would file a 1099-K now to the IRS, and businesses could then exclude those totals from their 1099 NEC or MISC. However, this implementation was further delayed on December 23rd of last year. So we had everything set up out of the box to pull totals for all of our clients, including Venmo and Cash App and all those were included last year in our totals. I'm sorry, excluded. And then on December 23rd, we had to change all of that and include them because they excluded, they pushed back the regulation. This year, it's going into effect so far. But as you can imagine, these organizations don't want the extra work. So there's actually legislation out there that's trying to push and delay it further or to change the threshold for them. So what do you do with that information? I know that was a lot to take in. How do you prepare? Are they going to delay again this December? I'd say one of two things is what you can do to help yourself out come January. Work with someone who's going to be monitoring the IRS guidance. See if any legislation was passed that would change the threshold or push back that delay. Or just be ready to calculate totals that both include and exclude these transactions. So for example, have a set of totals or have a way to pull totals that include Venmo and Cash App and Amazon payments and all those types of transactions, and then have a way to exclude them quickly so that you can get the correct totals for your 1099 recipients. All right. Next slide, please. So some important info for this year as well. The 1099 NEC forms are due to the IRS by January 31st. So, if you think about it, you have to be able to close your books after December 31st of 2023, and then you need to have all your W-9s in line, and then you have to be able to file by the 31st. So it's a short season, and much quicker than, let's say, the April deadlines for filing your standard taxes. And then the big change, going back to what we talked about from that first poll, is that for this year, if you have 10 or more information returns in aggregate, you have to e-file. I know that a lot of businesses relied on paper filing in the past. That was just their process. It is now a requirement that if you have 10 forms or more in total, you're going to have to e-file. So, plan ahead and make sure that you have a method of doing so. We e-file all of our 1099, so that's not an issue. If you're going to go it alone, definitely there's different ways you can do it, but at least have a plan for doing so if you know you're going to hit that 10 information form limit. All right, next slide. So why is this important? I think it's pretty simple here in that nobody wants to receive notice from the IRS, much less a fine or an audit. So I think an ounce of prevention is going to help out quite a bit. Just to kind of recap that, get W-9s from your vendors or independent contractors as soon as possible. Inevitably, you're going to have a hard time tracking down someone, and we can kind of discuss what happens when you can't get that information. And then also plan to either be working with someone who's monitoring that change for third-party payment processors, or have the ability to exclude or include those type of transactions come January. All right. Got our next poll question here.
I apologize. For whatever reason, the polls thing has frozen. So if you all want to chat your answers again in the questions box, you can do so. Looks like we've got a couple confidents here. Fairly confident, not at all.
Awesome.
Good, very confident, medium.
I like hearing it, yeah.
Not 100% with new changes.
Yeah, they've just made it tough. Just the tax code in general, it's not doing any of us any favors. But if you read into it a bit and stay on top of it, and are able to pull the totals both ways, you should be set. Obviously, we can take care of that for you as well. And if you're already working with out of the box, we have all of our team trained to be able to pull your totals based on whatever happens in December. All right. So yeah, we do have a page set up that gives you a little bit of information on the services we offer for 1099. Whether you're working with us already for consulting or bookkeeping, or you're new to the out of the box and just need some guidance on 1099s, or maybe just want that off of your hands and want someone to process it for you, that's the landing page you can go to sign up or get more information. One thing to note is that if you do work with us and you're not a current bookkeeping or consulting client, just want to make sure that you have your financials up to date. Otherwise, reach out to us separately, and we can help you with that as well, meaning up to date through the end of the year, by the time 1099 season comes.
We've got a couple questions here, Josh, on some of the things you just covered.
Great.
So I'm gonna pause here just to get those in. So someone asked, we have to e-file if we have 10 plus 1099s plus our W-2s? Is that correct?
Yes. I'm almost positive, but you know, everything is worth a little extra research, but I'm pretty sure they've done it in aggregate. The last I've read from the different sites I follow are that it's an aggregate number of information returns is sort of the verbiage that they're using. So if you had 6 W-2s and 5 1099s, you're over the 10 limit and you've got to e-file.
Very good. Is there a specific report you could recommend for 1099 preparation in QuickBooks Online?
Yes, a number of them. It's all going to be dependent on how your transactions are being entered, specifically if you do any transactions via journal entry. But the most important one I'd say to start with reviewing, especially throughout the year, is going to be your expenses by vendor summary. It's available in all versions of QuickBooks Online, Essentials or above. So take a look at that report and then scroll down to the bottom and specifically look for uncategorized, because that means you haven't assigned a vendor or an independent contractor to those transactions and work from there. But yeah, that's going to give you some totals to start with. From there, then you need to drill in and start determining which transactions, meaning which payments to that contractor count. That goes back to talking about transaction type. And then use, you know, your W-9s to determine if they're eligible for 1099s. That goes back to the who gets a 1099. So that's the best start for you there, is that expenses by vendor summary.
Fantastic. Can you talk through your attorney point again? All require a 1099 regardless of whether they are a corporation, correct?
Yeah, I'd have to pull up the actual regulation to see if there's any caveats to that, but you generally don't provide a 1099 to a corporate entity, but for attorney payments, certain types of attorney payments, not you know, settlements or anything like that, but payments for their services, you would still give them a 1099 even if they are a corporate entity.
Perfect. And we just had a question come in reference to the previous question. Can you provide a report in desktop that is expenses by vendor? Doesn't appear to be in there.
It's been a bit since I went through that report listing as far as the names of them, but you should be, the naming may be different, but the same type of reporting still exists. So you just browse through your reporting options, because again, desktop is going to have different reports based on the type of desktop you have. But look for something related to expenses and vendors, and there should be a very similar report. I'm just not sure the exact name at the moment.
Great. One last question. In the past, I've added this to the outsourced payroll company. Would that be good now?
Yeah, that's a possibility. And that's a good point actually to bring up. So if you are making payments to independent contractors, let's say through an outsourced payroll company, they would probably already have a W-9 on file for that independent contractor. You know, that a lot of the standard payroll companies do that. And so they might be equipped to file the 1099 for you. So it's worth checking with them to see if they have that. If it's just something that you have in your QuickBooks file, meaning you're not paying through or via those payroll providers, then it's going to be the same process as if you hired anyone to do your 1099s. You're still going to have to get access to the QuickBooks file, look through the reporting and the individual transactions to see what's eligible, and then have them file for you. But yeah, not a bad idea if you are already paying through that payroll company.
Great. One last question. How do you e-file? Is there a website we can go to? I'm assuming it's on irs.gov, or can you please?
Yeah. I'd say your best bet is going to be just Googling that one, just e-filing 1099s. There's a number of options. Then you can check pricing to do that. If you want to, yeah, if you're doing it independently, that's going to be your best bet. There's not any one right now that is the go-to.
Gotcha. And we just had another come in. Are 1099s required for W-8 BEN subcontracted workers?
I do not know the answer to that question. Yeah, a bit of honesty there. I'm not sure what that classification is.
Okay.
So, yeah, apologies.
I think we can move on.
Yep, okay, so I think we might have another slide after this. Okay, yeah, this is just a bit about the current pricing, the 1099 pricing we have. This information is also available on that previous link to the landing page that you saw there. So it is $375 for the first 10 vendors, filed vendors, that is. So if we do a review for you and we find, we review 100 vendors and only 9 of them are actually 1099 eligible, that is all included. We review your entire accounting file, review all the transactions, all the accounts. We have discussions with you on, who we need a W-9 for, or whether your, W-9s in your file are sufficient, and then do the e-filing for you, including state. And then after December 1st, it's going to go up to 450. That's really just to make sure that people are getting in advance, and so we can plan the work. We want to make sure that everyone gets filed by the deadline and that there's enough time for you to collect your W-9s if needed. So that's just to push people along a little bit and get things moving ahead of time. Yeah, any more questions there? All good questions that have come in so far.
Yeah, we've got a couple more. The IRS did set up a new section to e-file 1099 forms, Information Returns Intake System, IRIS. That's from Michael. Thank you, Michael. And Ellen is asking, my background is with desktop. Could you run through the process in QBO?
Oh, the process in QBO itself? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So this person was previously used to desktop and now they're just looking how it works in QBO.
Correct.
Yep, so I'll try, it's a long process, but I'll try to give just sort of the high level overview. Make sure your accounting file is up to date. You want to start reviewing things like the expenses by vendor summary to make sure that you have all transactions labeled. They have an assigned vendor independent contractor, each and every one of them. Then you want to go through your entire P&L and account listings and have a good idea of which type of accounts may include these type of transactions. What we do is we generally review the entire general ledger to find out where these transactions may be. Then you want to run the 1099 module in QuickBooks. You can find that within the vendor section of QuickBooks Online. There will be a button for it to run 1099 module. And then from there, you'll have the ability to map the accounts to the various type of 1099 boxes because, for example, there's a rent box, there's a non-employee compensation box, and the different types of forms. So you have to do the mapping there. And then you'll be able to view a list of transactions. This is where determining the proper transaction type is important. So you're going to want to have that information as well. If you're not using bank feeds or maybe you're manually importing your transactions, you want to make sure that you know whether these transactions were for Venmo or Zelle because they're going to be different this year, potentially. And then you'll be able to walk through the steps to figure out, somewhat what your totals are and then compare them to what you anticipated from your initial review. I say that because you want to make sure that there's no transactions missing due to journal entry or other types of entries. Now, one important thing is that QuickBooks Online does not do state filing. So unfortunately, we'd love to use the tool for that, but they will only do the federal filing. And so you'd still have to do the same process and create the forms to file with your localities and states. So that's a bit of a mouthful, but hopefully that gives a general overview of what to do in QuickBooks Online.
Excellent. Kind of piggybacking off of that, are state 1099s due at the same time?
I don't have the deadlines for all the states. So again, quick Google search there. My prior background's in audit, so I'm hesitant to give answers that I don't know for sure. So yeah, just always better to verify on that.
Perfect. Well, those are all the questions we have for now. If any more questions come in, I will I will address those. But I want to
Awesome.
thank I want to thank our attendees for their time and for engaging with such great questions. I'd also like to extend my thanks to you, Josh, for sharing your expertise and bringing such an informative session. If any additional questions arise post-webinar or to get started with your 1099s, feel free to reach out by way of the contact info on the screen, and we can connect you with your designated service representative. As a reminder, this recording will be shared with you later this afternoon. And I think that's about it. No more questions have come in. I guess you did a great job, Josh.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jeanette, and thanks for everybody for joining today. Please reach out if you have any questions at all. We'll see if we can help you.
Great. Thanks so much,
Happy
everybody.
Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Have a great day.